Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining today's IC Realtime webinar. In today's webinar, we will be discussing IC Realtime's Greenline. IC Realtime's Greenline is a set of cameras and recorders that are best suited for the cannabis industry, from the top to the bottom, from the grow operations to your dispensaries. I have muted everyone's microphone at the moment, but I will unmute everyone's microphone at the end of the webinar to field any questions anyone might have. My name is Michael Caballero. I'm one of the national sales executives here at IC Realtime, and let's get started. Now, before we proceed, a couple of things. Now, with our new webinar-based Zoom meetings, I don't have to pause to allow people to get into the webinar, so hooray for that. And next is, with this new webinar-based Zoom meeting here, we don't have to use the chat anymore for Q&A. We actually have a dedicated Q&A tab. So if you see at the top of your Zoom meeting, you do have that Q&A tab. So at the end of the webinar, you can simply drop your Q&A questions into that Q&A tab, and I'll be more than happy to answer those questions as usual. Now, let's go ahead and get started here. So what we're going to talk about today is our Greenline and the cannabis industry in general. As many of you may know, cannabis industry is growing at an exponential rate. Every year or every couple of years, another state opens up either for completely legal cannabis, all the way down to decriminalization and everything in between, from medical use, limited THC content. So there's quite a few aspects, and as you may have heard, all the way up to the federal level, they are making efforts to legalize cannabis completely. So this industry is only going to grow year after year, and here at IC Realtime, we have the ability to provide you with the ability to cover all of this industry with cameras, recorders, and everything in between for this industry. So what we're going to talk about here is a couple of things: video quality specifications, security camera placement, video footage retention, and law enforcement access. These are some of our partners here in the industry: Territory, Cooper State, Harvest. They all utilize IC Realtime cameras and recorders for video and surveillance monitoring of this industry. So, like I just said, let's talk about a little bit about the future of cannabis. Cannabis industry is poised to expand into several new markets in 2021. This could be an opportunity to target new businesses in this space. So, like I said, cannabis legalization continues to spread throughout the states, and members of Congress are advocating for federal legalization. In November 2020 alone, 5 new states had valid referendums on the legalization of cannabis. Mexico could become the world's most populated country to authorize cannabis for medical and recreational purposes. And the new Frontier Delta is projecting that U.S. cannabis industry is growing to $30 billion annually by 2025. So a lot of growth in this market. So how much surveillance does the cannabis industry need? Really, it's from seed to sale. Like I said, it's going to be from the top to the bottom, bottom to the top, and everything in between when it comes to the industry. They all need security surveillance coverage from breeders. So these are plants at the core of the industry, so to grow safe, and you need blackout cameras that are essential. So blackout cameras are cameras that can be configured for day and nighttime IR coverage. Something that you want to familiarize yourself with is the effects that IRs do have on the grow up of cannabis, or the growth of the cannabis plants. If you have incorrect lighting, or if you have any lighting at all in the 12-hour darkness cycle, because there's 2 cycles for cannabis growing. There's a 12-hour light cycle and a 12-hour dark cycle, and it has to be completely dark. Light from any source, including the IRs from a camera, are going to negatively impact that growth. So, for example, the plants won't grow as straight as the breeders want them to, or the actual flower, or the buds, if you will, won't grow in a specific nature that allows them to be harvested easily. So these are some of the aspects of the Greenline that you're going to have available to you, that ability to have your IRs not come on in that 12-hour light cycle. Cultivators will use it as well, as they are the second method from their breeders, and the grow ops. The crops always have to be watched, both legally and practically. So what that means is, and you'll see this throughout the actual layers of the industry, is that you have to be able to have that footage available if it needs to be for review, whether it's because of theft, because of fire, because of maybe a malicious person wants to impact the growth of these flowers. So all of this coverage needs to be made available. It needs to be made available to not only your local police departments, but your municipalities as well. Then there's your manufacturing facility. So this is where they're going to take that flower and go ahead and then manufacture that, bag it, and all of that needs to be monitored as well. And then we have dispensaries. That's the almost the last chain here. Dispensaries, it needs coverage for loss prevention. It needs cameras to cover things like the POS systems, any kind of ATMs. So full retail monitoring from dispensaries as well. And we have all of the cameras to accommodate that. And lastly is transportation and logistics. So you need to have recordings of when things are being loaded onto vehicles. And in some states, you need to have monitoring in the vehicles as well if you're going to do delivery. And of course, IC Realtime can accommodate that as well. So here are some of the most common video surveillance requirements for cannabis companies. So licensing requirement, a diagram or a layout with numbered camera locations and coverage directions must be submitted. Full visibility and always working. So your video cameras must always be working. You really want to have replacements for those available for your customers. That way, if an inspection comes up and a camera's not working, you can quickly go in and replace those cameras. You have to have a specific quality of the video footage, ranging from 1.3 megapixel all the way up to 2 megapixel. And your frame rates also have to comply with requirements. So 10 frames per second for the interior and 5 frames per second for the exterior. Of course, recorder storage is extremely important because you can go from requirements for between 30 and 90 days, all the way up to 2 years of storage and retention of video surveillance footage. Continuous recording as well. Most of these industries, you cannot record in simple motion or even our IBS rules. It has to be 24/7 recording. And if you're doing 24/7 recording and your requirement is something like 2 years, that's where you're going to want to look at our IC Realtime recorders, especially our 8128 line, because you can have enough hard drives in there and enough storage to be able to accommodate those 2 years by using features such as H.265 compression. Now, monitoring feeds, a lot of states require that video feeds are monitored 24/7. Not only that, but that you may need to give access to the municipality as well, or the police department, so they can check in on things as well. Access control is important. Businesses must deter and prevent unauthorized access from entering the building, whether it's a grow operation, cultivation, packaging, or dispensary. And then image snapshots. States also require that surveillance systems have the capability to produce a still photograph, which any of our IC Realtime recorders can do. So why use IC Realtime? Well, basically, it's experience. We've had experience in the cannabis industry for the last 5 to 7 years now. The reason for that is we've had great partners who have leaned on us for cameras that they feel really encompass the coverage areas and the recording that the cannabis industry has needed. And with that, we've developed these cameras and recorders over the years to accommodate that cannabis industry, of course, with that experience that we've acquired over time. So what are we really talking about here? Things like no blind spots. So our 720 360 cameras, those are capable of giving you 360 coverage with dewarping as well. But what you really get with that is no blind spots. If you centrally mount that camera, you have complete coverage of the entire area. And it isn't a fisheye view until you dewarp that image, which you can do right on the head end with the recorders that we do provide in the cannabis line. And you can have full 360 coverage with no blind spots and still have the ability to see a flat image with that dewarping. Continuous recording. So of course, all of our IC Realtime recorders have that ability to give you 24/7 continuous recording with feature sets like error warnings from the hard drives. So that way, if you run into an issue with the hard drive, at least you'll have those error reports before your hard drives go down. And of course, with that 8128 hot swappable drive base, where you don't have to turn off the recorder to swap out a hard drive. You simply pull that old hard drive out, replace the chassis, and slide that hard drive right back in. And then of course, our blackout cameras, dark before harvest capability. So that's going to give you that ability to have no ambient lighting from IC Realtime cameras in that 12-hour nighttime coverage. So of course, I'm going with IC Realtime, you're going to get concierge level dealer support. So all of those requirements that we were talking about, we're going to be able to provide to you things like, again, those design layouts, your storage calculations. These are things that you're going to be able to get from IC Realtime with that experience that we've had in the cannabis industry, right? So when you do become an IC Realtime dealer, digital dealer onboarding. So we're going to walk you through all of the process for our onboarding and to use our IC Realtime dealer portal, which we've talked about in other webinars. And with that ability, just in case the dealer portal, just in case you need to order something overnight because time is of the essence, that dealer portal is going to be an effective method in which to do so. Then we have our iCare customer service. So that's staffed with all of our customer service agents ready to create an RMA for you, get your replacement cameras into your hands as quickly as possible, and get you through the RMA process as quickly as possible. Then lifetime technical support for your end users as long as they own the product. So your customers in the cannabis industry, if they need technical assistance and you may not be able to provide it to them, they can call into IC Realtime and they can get technical assistance as long as they own that product. And like I mentioned, lastly, free layout and design service. So going back to our iCare team, security and alarm systems are required to be operated at all times. Proof of a failure notification system that provides an audible text or visual notification of any failure in the surveillance system is required for licensing. Like I mentioned, we have all of that available for you. We have notifications and alarms for not only your storage, but also for camera tampering, cameras being offline. So that's going to provide you all the information you need to be able to act quickly when it comes to replacing or troubleshooting a camera issue. And then most states require failure or system outages 30 minutes or more to be reported to regulated authorities. So you want to get, to avoid that, you want to get things back up and going as quickly as possible. So this is the layout and design services that we provide here at IC Realtime. All you need to do is provide us with either a spec sheet or floor plan or even a satellite view, and we're going to be able to provide you with a layout indicating camera coverage areas. Now, one aspect that is fantastic for this is the doorway distances. So as you can see here on that design, you have different colors for the coverage areas. Those different colors for the coverage areas indicate your doorway distances. So those are your detect distances, observation distances, recognition distances, and identification distances. That's what that's represented in the design layout. This is a free service provided by IC Realtime to our dealer network. So as long as you're a dealer with IC Realtime and you're purchasing your hardware from IC Realtime, you can get a layout very similar to this. Now, here are our Greenline recorders, and these are going to consist of course, our enterprise level 8128, our 6032, as well as our 6064. These are large scale storage recorders with the 6064 and the 6032 supporting up to 80 terabytes, and then the 8128 supporting up to 120 terabytes of storage. These drive bays support up to 10 terabytes. I apologize for the 8128, that's 160 terabytes of storage. As every hard drive slot in here supports up to 10 terabytes of storage per drive bay. Like I mentioned, H.265 compression recorders are going to save you at least 30% storage space. And with that H.265 compression, something to think about there is these recorders have Intel processors that can handle that encoding and decoding of H.265 compression. So these are fantastic recorders to utilize H.265. Super capable flexibility and control, cutting edge AI and deep learning. So you'll have your IMD available, like we talked about in the new technology webinar. You'll have your perimeter protection, like we talked about in the last webinar. And then, of course, we use Seagate Skyhawk surveillance drives. We found those to be far superior to your Western Digital Purple drives. So we only have the best hard drives in our recorders. So we have here bigger and biggest 32 channel NVR for dispensaries and smaller grow facilities, bigger at 64 channels for farm, packaging, and mid-sized retail, and then our largest, our 128 channel recorder for large facilities and multi-site coverage. Now, when it comes to Greenline cameras, you're only going to have the best of the best here. These are going to produce a clear color still photo from your surveillance video, have date and time stamping embedded on all video recordings, transmission control protocol capable of being accessed over the internet. So you have your port forwarding if you need to do that, but you also have your P2P as well. You can cover any camera resolution requirement from 2 to 4 to 8 megapixel, automatic day and night functionality with a removable IR cut filter that switches to day and night modes. And then, of course, our AI IBS capabilities, detecting people and vehicles, and that really adds an extra layer of protection. If you were on my Wednesday webinar of new technology, you can already understand how effective that's going to be for you. So we have a variety of different cameras here. Fixed wide angle. These are going to be great for your interior coverage areas, especially for your covering your dispensaries. Small vandal dome cameras for your exterior that are waterproof and tamper-proof. Our PTZs and 360 cameras, like I mentioned, for your dewarped coverage areas, or the ability to just monitor areas with our pan-tilt zoom cameras. And of course, many of our cameras have built-in microphones or have the ability to have microphones added to them so you can see and hear. Now, a little bit more about our black art cameras, our dark before harvest capable. To maximize yields, we can program the cameras to turn off their IR filters during the critical flowering phase. These are specific designed for crop safe operation, no plant damaging effects of IR illumination, like I explained. Maintains visibility with a 0.003 lux at an f-stop of 1.8. IRs can only be activated when triggered and complete crop and facility protection. Now, we do have cameras with advanced function as well. So many of you have sat through my thermal webinar, and as you can see here, thermal imaging is great for those instances, not only to see through any kind of foliage or any kind of landscaping, but also to monitor very crucial aspects of the grow that really are temperature controlled. All of our thermal hybrids do give you the ability to then receive notifications when a specific area either increases or decreases of the predetermined temperature. 360 and 720, like I mentioned previously and a few times in this webinar already, that's going to give you a full coverage area, no blind spots, and still allow you to dewarp that image to see clearly what you're looking for in that image. It will also give you the ability to pan, tilt, and digitally zoom when dewarped, not only in live view, but in playback and exported video as well. And of course, the previous mentioned night color technology. This is our Starlight, which uses Sony Starburst chipsets with down to 0.002 lux to give you full color at nighttime. So now what I'll do is I'll take any questions anyone might have. I do ask that if you have any questions, you use that new Q&A tab, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions anyone has. Hey, Gary, basically at this point, the majority or all of the cameras that we utilize have been configured for the ability to have the blackout function. It is basically just a configuration of the IR schedule that gives you that ability for that blackout function. Thanks, Randy. I appreciate it. Thanks again, Mark. Tom, this is this is going to be recorded and it will be posted to our IC Realtime YouTube channel. So you'll simply need to go to YouTube, search IC Realtime, select our channel, and go to webinars and training, and you'll find these recorded videos. Michael Clark is the IR schedule in the camera or the NVR. You can configure them both. Basically, when you connect an IP camera to an NVR, you have the ability to control the settings of the IP camera through the NVR. This goes for scheduling. This goes for any of your analytics. So our IMD, our perimeter protection, IDS, all of that can be done through the NVR and then pushed out to the cameras. Gary, so the 8128s began to support 10 terabytes really when we transitioned it to our Korean manufacturing. As you know, we've been moving everything over to Korea for manufacturing, and when the 8128 started to come out of our Korean facility, it was upgraded to 10 terabyte support along with the 6032 and the 6064. Jim, great question. How specifically do you provide failure notification? These are already pre-configured options in the recorder. When you go to your alerts tab, you're going to find alerts for your failure notification. So your IP camera tampering, IP camera failure, and then you have different configuration settings for your login credentials. You have different configurations for your hard drive status, notifications, hard drive failure, hard drive error. So all of those notifications can be done in the recorder and pushed out to the cameras. Larry, that's a great question. Analog cameras really don't have the same capability as IP cameras. Now, some of it can be done through the recorder, as analog cameras, even at high definition over coax cameras, they're still what you would determine as dumb cameras. They don't have a graphical user interface to save settings or anything like that, like an IP camera does. So ideally, you really want to use an IP camera if you're doing a cannabis grow up install. And then also keep in mind that most of this happens at the build level, right? So it's not like when you are developing a grow up or a dispensary or a packaging that you're going to have an already existing building or infrastructure that's going to have coax cable runs. So really, it's going to generally be a new install, and IP is really going to be what you want to utilize for that. Yep, Gary, I will definitely mention DEM 360. DEM 360 is one of the biggest companies we work with when it comes to implementing our cannabis line and implementing camera coverage and recorder coverage for many different grow op manufacturers. Mark, I'll see if I can get you those notes after the webinar. Let's give it a couple more minutes, see if we have any more questions here. All right. Well, it looks like no one else has any questions at this time. Well, thank you very much. Oh, it looks like, let's see what we have here. Can you elaborate on your software's ability to manage multi-site? Also, what about your mobile application? Great question, Jim. So with Smart ICRSS, that is our PC and Mac software, you have the ability to add an up to really there's no really limitation for recorders, but up to 200, and actually I apologize, 512 cameras to IC real-time software. So that that can be our 8128, 4 of those fully maxed out at 128 channels, or it could be a mix of smaller recorders. But that's what gives you that multi-site capability, is that you can bring in cameras from various different locations. Generally, you're not going to have 128 cameras unless it's an extremely large install coverage area and site. But you can bring in as many recorders as you need to, up to that 512 camera limitation. So you can monitor from one central location. And then from the mobile application, you can do the same thing with the same camera count limitation of up to 512 cameras being viewed through that mobile application for both iOS and Android. My pleasure, Jim. All right, I think that's it. I think there's no more questions at this time. Again, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us on today's IC Real-Time webinar. My name is Michael Capillero. I'm one of the National Sales Executives here at IC Real-Time. Have a fantastic weekend and stay safe.